Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of FPL Affairs, the podcast that discusses our 9-month-long love affair with FPL, including the ins and outs that keep us awake at night. In our final transfer plans and team selection video of the 24-25 season, we take a look at how the table's looking at the moment, who's got something to play for, what fixtures to focus on, and our final transfer plans, both FPL Weasels and my own. Before we get started, if you like this video, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for access to all of our existing content, as well as what we have planned over the next couple of weeks before what we get started for next season. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get cracking.
And there's Mo Salah. There goes Haaland. He's on his way again. He's hungry. He's scored. Ice cold precision from Palmer. Oh, Saka! That is a diamond of a goal.
Greetings, viewers, to the last transfer plans and team selection video from FPL Affairs podcast with me, Matt, aka the FPL Affairs veteran, sharing the discussions and random chit chat that the admin team in the Facebook group discuss when building up towards Gameweek. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble, so shall we get started? Okay, our Gameweek 38 transfer plans and team selection. Felt it apt to thumbnail Bukayo Saka and Evan Nelson because they are two names that are popular and certainly for me personally over the last few weeks have been ones that I've been keeping my eye out on working on, but we'll find out later on in the video whether I decided or have decided, if at all, whether to go with either of them. Anyway, we'll get started by looking at how the Premier League table stands and what actually, in fact, each club has got left to play for. Alrighty, looking at the table, Liverpool guaranteed champions and have been pretty much on the beach, literally, since. Arsenal have as good as bagged second spot. They've got 3-point and 8-goal advantage over Manchester City. It would require, really, Arsenal to lose comfortably to Southampton and Manchester City to beat Fulham comfortably, and it to be a 9-goal swing in favour of Manchester City, which would move them up from third to second. So it's highly likely that Arsenal have bagged second spot. Champions League position has been confirmed for them though. Sunday, you'd expect City, Newcastle United, Chelsea, Aston Villa and Forest all to be putting out as strong the teams as possible to get those Champions League places that are unconfirmed. 8th spot, which is now down to just between Brighton and Brentford. There is a small chance that spot will get a European place in the conference, and that depends on several factors. Firstly, that Chelsea win the conference, because the winners of the Europa Conference League automatically get a Europa League place. It would also require Chelsea to finish in 7th spot. It will effectively mean that the number of the Europa League spots combined with the Champions League spots, that the Carabao Cup's Conference League place will get redistributed to the team that finishes in 8th, which at the moment mathematically is between Brighton and Brentford. Brighton have a 3-point lead, so if Brighton get anything against Tottenham, then they get 8th spot. Brentford outside chance, but their goal difference is better than Brighton's as it stands. You often hear people saying that teams have got nothing left to play for, they're on the beach, but each league position does have a certain financial bonus. Fulham could still move up to 9th, but they like to finish their season with a good performance against in front of their own fans against Manchester City. Bournemouth are going to want to finish the season with a good performance at home as well against the relegated Leicester, so that's a fixture to really target. In his press conference, Iraola said that they were really targeting, they wanted to finish the season with a good performance and to make that top 10. And Bournemouth are 1 point behind Fulham and 2 behind Brentford, but have a superior goal difference on both of them. So top 10 is a very realistic target for them. Palace 2. Everton have got 13th spot wrapped up. They're too far adrift, so they can't overtake Palace in 12th. And they've got a 4-point gap above Wolves below them. So Everton, whatever happens on Sunday, are finishing in third, which is why I think it's a very promising and exciting fixture to target the Newcastle-Everton, because Newcastle, with everything to play for, fighting for Champions League, and Everton, literally nothing. They had their last fixture at Goodison last week, so that occasion, that goodbye send-off has happened. West Ham, not much to play for. They've had their last home game, but they are facing relegated Ipswich. Manchester United, who knows what version of them will turn up at Old Trafford against Aston Villa. It'll be tricky because they'll want to put on a good performance, you'd think, to not necessarily make up, because it wouldn't make up for their showing in the Europa League final, but sort of like an apologetic performance. So to want to put on a show saying, we're really sorry we let you down last week. But then Manchester United are up against Aston Villa, who are the informed team in the last 9 game weeks. Aston Villa are on the team with the best run of form and 3 consecutive clean sheets, and Manchester United don't score goals very easily. So they're strong favourites for that, but we'll run through the fixtures in a moment. Leicester already relegated, Ipswich already relegated, and Southampton already relegated. So, okay, so looking at the Gameweek 38 fixtures, you may notice that some of the fixtures I've got little green thumbs up hands, and a couple with thumb down hands, and a few actually which us as admin were disagreeing about whether you'd want to target them or not. Going through them then, Fulham at home to Manchester City. Fulham just going to solidify that top 10 spot. Man City going to the Champions League. How will they fare with squad rotation? Manchester United, Aston Villa. General discussion and agreement across the admin is to focus on Aston Villa. They've been defending resolutely recently with 3 straight clean sheets. So the likes of Konsa, Martinez, Crystal Balls, Kieran Ball invested in Matty Cash last week, which was potentially promising. Weasel does have Luca Dean with Villa. Defensively, attacking wise, really, you're looking at Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins, as Manchester United showed in the Europa League final that they really struggle to score goals. And their defence, although it's better, it's less bad than it was. Sorry, Manchester United fans. Newcastle Everton, and I'm trying to put this as my impartial FPL head on rather than the prejudiced Newcastle. Anyway, plus points for targeting Newcastle Everton as a fixture. Everton, as I said on the last slide, they are finishing in 13th spot. That's it. They can't go any higher. They won't go lower. They've had their last goodbye to Goodison Park. Tarkowski and Branthwaite have both been ruled out, and someone else in their defence, I think, is ruled out. So from that point of view, they're a lot weaker in defence, and they haven't necessarily been great up front either. So Newcastle players to target, you could target Dan Burn or Fabian Schär for set-piece threat. Everton being weak up front, they'd have chances for clean sheets as well. So there's big potential upsides, a bit like how Konsa got his 15-pointer last week and Kukurea got his 15-pointer last week. There's a potential there with Burn and Schär. Livramento, he's been very popular, but for me, not so much. He gets in good areas of the pitch and can put in some decent crosses on both feet, but the actual attacking returns, he hasn't got a large number. My memory serving me correctly, I think he's got one attacking return all season of any combined. So I would say if you're targeting Newcastle defence to bring in, then it's either Schär or Burn for me. Midfield, because of the injury to Trippier, added to Lewis Hall, who's been absent for some time, Newcastle has switched to a back 5, a flexible sort of 5-4-1 of late. Problem with Jacob Murphy, who has done amazingly well statistically, creatively this season. he's effectively been utilised as a right wing back, and when out of possession, he's effectively a right back. Therefore, potential attacking returns are less. Fair enough. Last fixture was away to Arsenal, so it was going to be less anyway. But even in the games before that, he wasn't as threatening as he has been. So, from a midfielder's point of view, it's interesting because Tonali and Bruno have been getting some good attacking returns of late. But I'd be looking for a Gameweek 38 punt. I'd be looking at either Harvey Barnes or more inclined Anthony Gordon to punt on. I think possibly Gordon against his former club really would be one to go for, and one I may be or may not be considering with my moves. I'll come into that when we move on to our teams. Forest Chelsea, it's going to be so cagey and low scoring. It will be a game of chess, that game, because both of them are generally quite good on the transition and the counter attack. So it's going to be who takes that risk first. Nottingham Forest need to win really, but it will be cagey. Liverpool and Crystal Palace. This is one where initially we put down as a thumbs down, avoid this fixture. But I think defensively, yes, avoid. Slots come out and said a Crystal Palace final home game. That's where you'll see the real Liverpool, because by then they should have recovered from their partying abroad. Crystal Palace we'll come to in a moment. Liverpool, I think if you're chasing rank, by that I mean you're trying to gain up places in your mini league or overall rank, and you need to look at, okay, the teams I'm trying to catch, what players have they got likely to have Salah? And from a Liverpool perspective, if you were going to go any element of differential or get an additional, then probably Luis Diaz will be the one to go for. Connor Bradley has had some good attacking returns. I've got him in my squad, but I'm unsure about playing him, particularly with some level of uncertainty over Trent. Now, I said in the Gameweek 37 review video how the Liverpool fans, and certainly ones in the admin group, were no to Trent. It's all about Bradley. Bradley starting him, getting him ready for next season, building up his minutes and getting them in the legs. Last home game, Trent was booed, and in the last fixture, he was on the bench and he didn't come on for any minutes, if I remember. So I think Liverpool, it would really be, if you're going to go there, it would be keeping an eye out and an ears out for any team leaks on Sunday lunchtime, or perhaps if you need a midfield transfer, take a punt on Luis Diaz. Crystal Palace, Sarr, who I own, started on Tuesday against Wolves and got about 63 minutes. Eze got between 5 and 10 minutes and scored. So I would expect Eze to start against Liverpool. I would think Sarr would therefore be benched. Nketiah, as he got 2 goals in there, I suspect he would likely start again and bench Mateta. Tottenham Brighton avoid. Tottenham just won't give 2 hoots after winning the Europa League. Wolves Brentford. From a Wolves perspective, avoid the keeper and defence. I think I put a lot more faith in Brentford players scoring. Cunha, potentially his last hurrah before what would have been planned in advance of his Manchester United transfer. Whether that will still go ahead with United losing to Tottenham remains to be seen, especially after their whole entire squad was placed up for sale. Brentford, I can see them conceding. So for them, it's all about the attacking trio of Mbermo, Wissa and Sharda. To be honest, I would think if you are going to pick anyone from that fixture, it would be them. We did quite clearly as an admin team also put thumbs up as a fixture to target Bournemouth at home to relegated Leicester. Bournemouth should want to put a show on for their fans. Last home game of the season. Iriona again has said that he wants to bow out with Bournemouth finishing in the top 10. Leicester's poor scoring rate, and with Vardy coming out last week saying he wanted to finish his Leicester career playing at home to say goodbye to the Leicester fans. He said he's not going to be playing this game, so they're less likely to score. So you've got the options of Bournemouth defenders, Kirkez for his roaming down the wings, attacking play, Huyson for his set play ability. Keeper you could look at. Alternatively, from an attacking perspective, Evan Nilsson and Semenyo are arguably the 2 most nailed for minutes. Clive his minutes have been reduced in recent fixtures. For me, it would be, from a forward point of view, to focus on Evan Nilsson. He's the popular pick. And even though it seems to be loads of people getting him in, his actual ownership is still really, really low. So even with all these transfers in, he shouldn't necessarily shoot up ridiculously high. Moving on to Arsenal-Southampton, that will be a fixture I would, and the admin team certainly agree from a defensive point of view to target, but we were bantering and bickering about what to do from an attacking point of view. That Arsenal have come out and said in the press conference they want to show respect to the league and the fans by putting on a decent performance and being respectful with the selection. So they're not going to play an entire team of kids. They've also said they want to chase the Golden Glove for Raya and to bag the most clean sheets. At the moment, he's level with Sells of Forest on 13. So with the injury and Saliba being ruled out, likely you've got Raya in goal, back four of Lewis Skelly or Tierney at left back, depending on what your sources are. Centre backs Kiwior and Calafiori, and Ben White at right back. If you don't have an Arsenal defender and are looking for one out of those, I would say Ben White's attacking threat would be the punt to take. I took Kiwior as a punt when a lot of people were moving to Saliba, and that's worked out for me quite nicely. So I will most probably be playing double Arsenal defence, but we'll talk more about that when you look at my team. Attacking wise, the obvious one is Saka, and I do actually have the funds to go from Sarr to Saka. He would be the obvious one. Again, it's a rotation of, yes, you might be able to guess or work out who would start, but how many minutes would they actually get? So you might get Martinelli starting on the left-hand side, but then after an hour or so, Trossard comes on for the last 35, 40 minutes. Havertz came off the bench against Newcastle, so could he be in line for a start up front? In which case, would it be him and Marino? Part and part with that. Saka on the right, probably likely to start, but then wary to come off the bench. So I'd say Arsenal, if you can double up on defensive assets to do that, but I'd be reluctant with attacking assets personally. You could go differential, but Saka, if you're going obvious, but be prepared that it's highly unlikely he'd get 90 minutes. Then the final fixture being Ipswich-West Ham, likely to be Delap's final showing for Ipswich if he is selected, because McKenna admitted that it's likely next season he will be applying his trade elsewhere. As for West Ham, you're only really looking at Jarrod Bowen because he's nailed for minutes. He's got attacking returns in 5 consecutive games. And although West Ham don't score very many, generally high percentage of their goals, Jarrod Bowen either scores or assists, 58% or 60% or something. He's either created or scored for them. So he would be the only real player I'd be considering owning from that fixture if you don't own already. Moving on, we've got a free hit draft from the Admin Assemble team. We've gone with Raya in goal, back three of Concert at Man United, Gvardiol away to Fulham, and Shaw at home to Everton. Midfield and captaincy, Mo Salah and Burmo, Bowen and Saka in midfield. Bowen getting the vice captaincy, and a front three of Evan Nilsson, Isak and Wissa. This was made earlier in the week. Isak, the big talking point, particularly with house comments, which we'll go through when we move on to team selection. And we've got down on the bench Martinez in goal, so that if Raya is rested, we've got someone in line to come in who's nailed and good chance for a clean sheet. Tricky benching Rodgers, but it is what it is. But you'd be fully trusted that if Isak or anyone else didn't play, that Rodgers would come in and do a job. And then the last assets we've got the final defenders, Kirkes at home to Leicester, Bournemouth and Kiwior away to Southampton. Let's see how that compares to Fantasy Football Hub's AI free hit team, who they've gone with completely different goalkeeper pairing. They've gone with Flecken in goal away to Wolves, with Pope at home to Everton on the bench. They've gone with a back three, double Arsenal defence in Calafiori and Ben White, alongside Bournemouth's Højsund. In midfield, very differential actually, other than captain in Salah. They've got Martinelli of Arsenal, Semenyo of Bournemouth, and they've gone with Harvey Barnes of Newcastle. Fifth midfielder on the bench is Kevin Schade of Brentford. Front three vice-captaincy is on Erling Haaland, Ollie Watkins and Evan Nilsson. The defenders on the bench alongside Pope and Schade are Konate at home to Palace and Burn for Newcastle. So double Newcastle defence. Personally, I can't see Flecken keeping a clean sheet. So from this selection, I will play Pope over Flecken. Can understand the double Arsenal defence and Bournemouth as well, targeting the relegated sides of Southampton and Leicester. That continues in the midfield with Martinelli and Semenya. Barnes with a fixture, Newcastle a lot to play for a Champions League spot, and Everton with literally nothing to play for. Haaland punt up front, bit brave. Watkins away to Manchester United, good shout. And the popular Evan Nilsson at home to Leicester, which I'd agree. I think with the benching options, I don't think I'd put any of those ahead of those that have started, to be honest. The debate will be looking for team leaks on Martinelli and Barnes and them starting as well as Schade. But yeah, that's the AI free hit team. And we'll now move on to FPL Weasel, who was sent in a video of him.
I have 2 free transfers this week, which I probably won't make till Saturday, but at the moment I'm thinking about getting in Ben White away to Southampton for Digne, who's the rotation risk. And my second transfer be Mateta, who again is under rotation risk. And my striker I'm thinking about getting is Chris Wood, because everyone is going for Evan Nilsson. So my team for the final game week of the season will be 3-4-3 as usual, with Pope in goal at home to Everton, White my transfer away to Southampton, Hudson at home to Leicester, Guardiola away to Fulham. My midfield four will be Rodgers away to Manchester United. I'm Captain Bowen away to Ipswich after his amazing recent form. Mbeumo will be my first captain this week away to Wolves, and I'm playing Salah at home to Palace. And my front three will be Watkins away to Manchester United, Wizard away to Wolves, and my other new striker Woods at home to Chelsea. And on the bench, I've decided to bench Flacken away to Wolves. I think Wolves will score. Odegaard away to Southampton, who Arsenal have got all their midfielders back now, so he's a rotation risk. Muniz away to Liverpool. He must finally be rested. And also against Liverpool, he's unlikely to keep a clean sheet. And my third defender is Lekovic at home to Chelsea, who have been absolutely awful at clean sheets the last few game weeks.
Well, thank you, FPL Weasel, for that. My thoughts. Ben White, good shout, getting some Arsenal coverage in defence, to be honest, because your existing side doesn't have any of that. So you've at least got one in there, and it'll be a differential shout. So yeah, I like your back three. Different. For those of you confused, looking on screen is Fantasy Football Hub's AI recommended lineup based on his existing squad, which was Flecken in goal, Huyson, Gvardiol, Milenkovic, back three, midfield five of Salah captain, Bowen and Mbeumo, Odegaard and Rodgers, vice captaincy on Watkins, and Wissa joining Watkins up front, therefore benching the Palace assets. And Digne, what's good in relation that I like, Paul, about your transfers are they are two of the players that are on the Hub's bench for your team in terms of Luca Dean and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Would they bring in a third forward and exchanging swapping one of the defenders for your replacement? So yeah, I'd say some good calls. I'm presuming going a little bit differential is for you're trying to break into that 100k, which you've been sort of creeping towards if you've been following his rank. In our review videos, one thing though I will be very, very wary of is I'm really not sure about the Chris Wood shout, because he's been on poor form. And I think, yes, Evan Nilsson's going to be popular, but I don't think his EO is going to be as high as a lot of people think. And I also think there are better differential alternatives than Chris Wood. Notably, I'm thinking is Danny Welbeck at Brighton playing at Tottenham, because Tottenham are just not going to give a monkeys. about that game. So he's potentially one, and I think João Pedro's either been linked with moves elsewhere, or there's been a disciplinary situation after an incident with one of his teammates. But anyway, I'm going off the point. Do you fancy having a look at who the Hub AI thinks you should bring in? Interesting. They agree about the selling of Luca Dean, but they've gone with recommending bringing in Kivior instead of Ben White. As for the second transfer, I actually recommended you sell Rodgers in favour of Martinelli. Tricky, because Arsenal have arguably got the better fixture, but Rodgers is a 90-minute man. Martinelli isn't. Yeah, tricky ones to weigh up and consider in relation to yours. So after looking at Paul's, we'll move on to mine and the dilemmas I'm going through at the moment. Hub recommends I start with Raya of a back three of Kivior, Gvardiol and Konsa, midfield and captain Salah, vice captaincy on Bowen. Alongside them two is Mbermo and Morgan Rodgers. Front three of Wissa, Marmoush and the flagged Isak. On the bench, Sarr and Munoz, both of Palace, with their fixtures away to Liverpool. And finally, Conor Bradley for Liverpool. Looking at it, I would say if I were to do nothing, that's the lineup I would have. Question marks over captaincy with Salah. I've been tempted this week about going Bowen for it, for captaincy. But I've been umming and ahhing because I've got 4.4 million in the bank and 2 free transfers since I rolled last week. And the main players on the chopping block are Munoz, if I decide to go for a defensive transfer, because Liverpool are going to score more than one. So that would cost Munoz a point. Some of the tougher games of late, he has tended to get booked as well. So that's high risk of losing another point. And I think that game, both clubs are just going to be all out attack to put on a fancy show. So Munoz is my defender that's at risk if I decided to make a defender transfer, which really for the final week is quite boring. Midfield, it's Sarr that's suspect to change. And up front, lots of people are selling Isak. The importance to the side Isak is that if he's fit enough to play, then Howe will start him. If he's not fit enough, I genuinely, from past experience, believe how Isak's perceived as part of it, I envisage he'd be left out. So I struggle to see where he'd be placed on the bench. I think it's either he starts, gets reduced minutes based on the state of his groin, and Wilson comes off the bench, or Isak doesn't play at all. So my thoughts and faith, as Howe has said, that he hasn't trained with the squad this week. He's been doing his own individual work and strengthening it. And there's been no pain, if I recall. So the next 2 days critical. So by the sounds, what Howe was saying, it's 50-50. But even if it's virtually nailed on that Isak's well enough to play, Howe wouldn't admit to that. So anyway, the final player on the chopping block for me that I'm considering is Marmoush, just because of minutes and rotation. Okay, nine points inside the top 100k, and I'm 20 points, I think, behind 50k. Had Arsenal not beaten Newcastle last week, I would have most definitely and had planned to bring in Saka. Now I'm not so sure because of security of minutes, and I had been planning on Evan Nilsson for Marmoush. Those are still possibilities, but I've also thought about the defences and looking at data and researching about likelihoods of clean sheets, and Newcastle are right up there defensively. And with Everton missing Tarkowski and Branthwaite at a minimum, Shaw and Byrne are going to have some good, strong aerial threat from set pieces. So there's attacking potential there as well as clean sheet potential. I've got a temptation of Munoz to one of those two. And if that was the case, who would I bench? I think I'd possibly consider playing Martinez and benching Raya, with Kivior being my Arsenal asset, and alongside him having Gvardiol and Byrne or Shaw. Thus having on the bench Raya and Konsa. That would be if I were to bring in a Newcastle defender. Midfield for Sarr. I've said I've got the funds for Saka, but I'm unsure about his volume of minutes in this fixture. And with it being a rare summer of him having time off, he may be allowed on holiday early. So Saka I'm uncertain of. Midfielders I am considering. I've already got Bowen, I've already got Mbeumo, got Rodgers and Salah. Don't want Palmer based on form or fixture. And Arsenal attackers, it's just minutes for all of them, whether they start or whether they come off the bench. And I'm ending up veering towards the second Newcastle asset on top of Isak, with probably Gordon or Barnes over Murphy, because he's been playing more right back of late. Doing that would envisage benching Rodgers most probably, based on his expected points total, which it's never been nice this season benching Rodgers and having him first sub. But if I do, the alternative would be to keep Rodgers starting and whoever I bring in, have them first sub, so that if Isak doesn't play, I know I've got a trustworthy first sub to play. The alternative, I would do Marmoush to Evan Nilsson and just target the Leicester at home fixture. I think it's 2 from Sarr, Munoz and Marmoush that go, because I can't see there being concrete confirmation of Isak not playing. So I would rather have as strong a bench as possible, really, to allow for that risk of Isak not playing, as well as any rotation. But anyway, that's where I'm standing with mine. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you're planning on doing something similar, or if you've got a similar team and you've thought of something completely different, let me know. As for the Hub AI's recommended transfers for me, they've gone Sarr to Saka and Munoz to Burn. So 2 possibles. Definitely 2 I'm thinking of selling, and 2 I'm considering bringing in. So that doesn't particularly help me at all. But we shall see, and keep an eye out and ear out for team leaks. How you can get in touch and how you can like and subscribe is on x.com/FPL Affairs. Facebook group, easiest way other than the link, which will be put in the description, video description and channel description. Fantasy Premier League FPL 1, just go on Facebook and type in group search FPL Affairs and you'll find us. We should pop up quite easily. Our YouTube channel handle at FPL Affairs, where you can access all our pre-existing videos, our Idiot's Guide series on the different chip usage, which will hopefully still be applicable for next season, but we'll rejig and redo those should we continue, and the Spotify link as well. If you have found this video if you have found this video useful and helpful and you can relate to it, then please like by clicking the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for all our existing videos, as well as clicking the bell for notifications for any content that we may issue over the summer and in the build up to next season. But all that's left to say is keep your final FPL affairs tightly under wraps until Sunday's deadline, which I think is 2:30 p.m. Sunday afternoon, with all 10 games kicking off at 4 o'clock. And then openly share what you're happy and willing to share. Goodbye, everybody.